Hello everyone, I just wanted to make another short video and give you guys maybe some hints and make sure you guys knew how to do your homework if you were struggling with it, if anybody's struggling with how to use the code here or the files. So I'm just going to go ahead and solve 1A for you guys, and then I might talk about a few other random things here at the end. So let's go ahead and do it. So the first thing you need to do is open up this file right here, module2 exercise1.jl. So there's two functions that you need to implement. So the first problem is we're trying to return an array of odd numbers. So it's already scaffolded out for you that it'll build the array that's initialized with all zeros. So we need to implement a loop here. So let's do for I in range. Let me grab something that I had here before that I will show a little bit later. So that's how we get a range of numbers. And so what we can then do is odd numbers sub the index that we have I, and set that equal to just I, just to start out with, just to have something. This is obviously not the correct solution, so notice I saved that. Once again, reminder, I'm not going to do this until the end because I don't need to, but save early and save often because you might get kicked out of JupyterLab. So the first thing to do to just run some of this test code that I provided is uncomment out that code, so remove the pound symbol, and then I can run this. This is going to take a second because I haven't initialized anything yet. So I printed out the first 7 numbers. Okay, that's most of the way there. So how do we turn that into odd numbers instead? What about 2i? We did this above, so that's all of the even numbers. And then if we subtract 1 from that, I'm putting extra parentheses that don't need to be there, but I'm a little OCD about that sometimes, just because math. And there we go. So there are the first 7 odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. There we go. There's 1A. So you would do a similar thing to do the mathematical things of get powers of 3. We can then also run the tests and make sure that everything is working as expected. So you'll see here all the tests pass. If I go back to, say, my even version and run the tests again, we're going to see some failed tests. So it'll give you where it equal 2, and you can pop open these test files. So module 2 exercise 1A test runner, and you can see what should have been, and you'll see the test cases that I'm running. One thing I did forget to do, though, is I forgot to put my name. That's important for when I'm grading. Please remember to do that. If not, I'm going to have I will make you guys return it in. So then your name, so still fails, put it back to the successful one, to actually printing out odd numbers. And there we go. So that is how you do it. So you just need to do all those and make sure that when you comment all of these out and run the tests that they pass. You can write little scripts like this and call them and display them to make sure while you're trying to debug, because the tests don't display anything, they just tell you if they passed or not. They give some information, but not always the most helpful information. All these fail, but once all of these pass, then you'll be ready to turn it in. So what you then need to do is get all 3 of these files and then download them. That downloaded the wrong thing, so apparently that's not how you do it. Right click, and you have to, there we go, and allow multiple. So and then you turn these in a folder with your name. The instructions are on the website. Down here in the notebook, I didn't go into great length about VS Code. There's a lot of really great things about using an IDE. I just wanted to show a couple basic ones. I'll continue to do things throughout the semester. So let me open up this file on my local version of this, and I will, at the end of this, I'll show you how to download the files so you have all of it. So we can open up the Jupyter Notebook just in the same way. Everything's loaded. It's getting everything loaded up, but I can do the same kinds of things. So I can uncomment this out, run it. It's going to load. It's got to do its thing and think here for a moment. We'll let it think. There we go. So, and then it printed out the integers because I have it implemented in the same way. So again, put my name in. Hayes 2. So let's just go with this. So the way I like to think about writing code is really thinking about it one line at a time and seeing the results. One of the really nice things about in a development environment like this is it lets you run what's called a visual debugger. So I'm going to copy and paste this code over here. So a Julia script, like I've talked about before, these script files, you can just run them by themselves. So what's happening is it builds up these functions. It says, okay, cool, they're ready to be called. And then down at the bottom, you can then start calling the functions that are above. So this is a script. So what the script does is it has these functions, and our script is going to run get odd numbers, which is defined here, and then display the result of that, which is odd numbers. And the visual debugger, so you can put right here what's called a breakpoint, and I'll put one in the function as well, where I can press this debug button. It's going to take a second to load, but then once it starts running, it will stop execution on this line and wait until I tell it to move on, and you'll be able to hover over things and see the values of things as things progress line by line. So here we go. It's loading, so all the color changes suggest that it's doing things and getting ready. Paused on step, so highlights in yellow the line that's currently being executed. So I can then press the play button up here, which will continue to either keep going or go to the next breakpoint. So it went into this function, so now we're just in the first line. So we can see 7 got passed into our function. We can now look at odd numbers and hover over it, and we can see it's an array, a vector of 7 values, all initialized as 0. And then you have this thing over here that it has all of the variables. So local means local to the scope you're in right now, which is the function. There are global variables which you don't want to use, and we don't need to talk about what those are, but you don't need to know them, nor should you really be using them. Okay, so we can go through the first time through the loop. Okay, what happened? We put 2 in, so 2 times 1 from 1 to number of values, so it makes sense that that's doing it. So we did it 2 more times. Now we're in the step over, so we're now at I equals 4, so the 4th value won't have been set yet. So we then jump over it, the 4th one is added, and then the 4th one is there. Say, okay, cool, I'm kind of close, but my values aren't right, so I can just press play and it will go to the end, and it printed it. And I go, oh, I was doing even numbers, I just need to do odd numbers. So there we go, let's run that. Save, press the debug button again. It'll take a second to connect to the debugger again. writing. And there we go. Press this button. Goes into the function. Okay, what's 2i minus 1? Oh, one thing I wanted to do, so this is going to give us the right values, but one thing I like to do if I have something like this, where that's the right way to write the code when it's done, but you can set it to like a dummy variable like new odd or if odd number equals, and put that there, and then have a breakpoint, you know, down here so you can see it. And then you can hover over that value and see what's actually going in before it actually goes in, as sometimes that's more valuable to see things in the state before they're happening. So this is easier to read. You could even leave it like this. I mean, it's slightly less efficient. The computer might optimize that when it's doing its thing. Not important what that thought meant. I was just thinking aloud. Anyway, so the first time you got I, 2i minus 1. I've got 1. Cool. That's what we're looking for. Press play, go. So when I pressed play and I'm inside the loop, it went all the way back to the top of the loop. Do the next line again. So I is now equal to 2. The if number is 3. All right. Bob's your uncle. We got it done. So I can then remove the breakpoint, press play, and then it will finish and prints out. So we then know that we're done. We can remove that testing code that we were using in the script. We can run this, cool, and then we can then go in and run the unit tests again, and tests pass. There we go. So that's a little bit about using Visual Studio Code. If anybody has trouble installing it, you can just Google install Julia and install. I'll pull up the web pages just so you can see them. Install Julia. Just Google that, download. Use the correct one based on your operating system. It'll run you through how to install it. It's pretty easy. Just use all the default settings and then install Visual Studio Code. Press this download button depending on whatever operating system you're using. Again, all the default settings. And then once you have Visual Studio Code installed, you'll want to go to extensions right here, this thing on the sidebar, and type in Julia, and then Julia language support, which enables all that debugger. So this button right here says disable. For you, it would say install, because I already have it installed. So just press that, it'll install it. It's pretty quick. So that gives you all the stuff where if you're in a Julia file, like, so because I've pressed in func and it knows that I'm in a Julia file, I can press tab and then new function name. So that was a snippet. So it knew, because I was writing in Julia, it knew how to give me extra features, or easier to use features. So I could put in a for loop I, so I press I, tab, 1 in 100, tab, and then it puts me where I want to be. So those are some things that are useful and nice. There's tons of shortcuts and key bindings and stuff. I have this in light mode, but most everybody that writes code uses dark mode, and I normally do too. It's easier on your eyes. So there's lots of settings and things that make your life easier and more comfortable. That's just scratching the surface, but I just wanted to introduce that to you a little bit. If you have any trouble installing this and want to install it, please let me know, and I'm happy to help. If you're going to be writing code long term, you don't want to be using things like JupyterBook and or a text editor that doesn't have features like this. It's just going to make your life a lot easier. With that, I will say goodbye, and once again, let me know if you guys are having any trouble with anything, and I'm happy to help.